There is a sound the modern world makes when it's perfectly still. It's not silence. Silence is a forgotten luxury. No, this sound is a low electric hum. It's the whisper of fiber optic cables buried beneath oceans, the breath of server farms sprawling across desolate landscapes, the silent pulse of a billion microprocessors calculating, sorting, and filing away the digital ghost of every human being on the planet. Most people don't hear it. They are conditioned to ignore it, to mistake it for the background noise of progress. But if you learn to listen, really listen, you realize it is the sound of the machine that runs the world. And it is not a benevolent machine. It is the sound of a new kind of war. A war being fought not with soldiers on a battlefield, but with algorithms in the dark, with bits of data that can cripple a nation more effectively than a bomb, and with ideas that are carefully planted in the minds of the masses until they blossom into the chaos we see on our screens every single day. We are told that our world is chaotic, that our societies are fracturing under the weight of random, uncontrollable forces. We are sold a narrative of ideological clashes, of populist uprisings, of unforeseen economic crises and spontaneous cultural shifts. But this is the first and most critical lie. There is very little that is random. The chaos is a tool. The division is a strategy. What we are witnessing is not the breakdown of the old order, but the meticulous, brutal construction of a new one, engineered by a class of people who have transcended the very idea of national loyalty. They don't have a flag. Their only allegiance is to the network, to the system they have built, a system that renders constitutions and elected presidents as quaint and obsolete as a horse and carriage. Think of them not as a cabal of shadowy figures in a smoke-filled room, for that is a cartoon from a bygone era. These are the architects of the 21st century. They meet not in secret lairs, but in the sterile, glass-walled conference rooms of Davos, at the sun-drenched retreats of Silicon Valley, and on the encrypted, untraceable video calls that flicker between Zurich, Shanghai, London, and Washington. They are the titans of finance who can move markets with a single keystroke. The tech moguls who own the digital platforms where public opinion is born and dies. The heads of intelligence agencies who operate in a gray world beyond oversight, and the chief executives of multinational corporations whose private wealth dwarfs the GDP of most nations. They are the invisible council, and their power is not derived from a ballot box, but from their control over the fundamental infrastructure of modern life, the flow of money, the flow of information, and increasingly, the flow of life itself. Their great game is not about East versus West, not anymore. That is the theater they present to the public, a grand and distracting puppet show. The United States and China, Europe and Russia are presented as existential rivals locked in a struggle for global dominance, and on one level, they are. Their nationalistic ambitions are real, and their leaders play their parts with conviction. But behind the curtain, the invisible council plays a different game. They use nations as proxies, as pawns on a global chessboard. They fund both sides of a conflict. They will back a nationalist strongman in one country to disrupt a regional trade bloc, while simultaneously funding a color revolution in a neighboring state to install a more compliant, globalist-friendly regime. They don't care who wins the public performative battle because they are positioned to profit from the instability itself. War, whether hot or cold, is a market. It creates debt, it spurs technological innovation for surveillance and control, and most importantly, it keeps the population distracted, frightened, and easy to manipulate. Consider the new weapons of this war. They are silent, invisible, and devastating. The first is economic strangulation. Forget naval blockades. Today, you can bring a nation to its knees by cutting it off from the global semiconductor supply chain. You can engineer a currency crisis by flooding the market with algorithmically traded derivatives. You can create a phantom food shortage by manipulating commodities futures and disrupting shipping logistics, causing panic and riots in a target country, all while the architects of the chaos watch the data streams from their climate-controlled offices. They are testing the system, finding the pressure points, learning how to turn the complex, interconnected web of global trade, which was sold to us as a guarantee of peace, into the perfect weapon of asymmetric warfare. The second and perhaps more powerful weapon is perception architecture. The old world propagandists, the Goebbels and the Bernays of the past, would weep with envy at the tools now available. They had to rely on newspapers and radio. The new architects of reality have weaponized social media. They don't just create fake news, that's amateur hour. They have built an industrial-scale machine for manufacturing consensus. Fleets of AI-driven bots and armies of low-paid workers in digital troll farms can create the illusion of a massive grassroots movement overnight. They can take a fringe idea and, through relentless, targeted amplification, push it into the mainstream until news anchors are forced to report on it. They can identify the deepest social fissures in a target nation, race, religion, class, generation, and use algorithms to feed each side a custom-tailored reality of rage-inducing content, turning citizens against each other with terrifying efficiency. Their goal is not just to make you believe a lie. Their goal is to shatter the very concept of objective truth, to create a fog of information so dense that the average person, exhausted and overwhelmed, simply gives up seeking truth and resigns themselves to believing whatever their chosen tribe tells them. In this fog, they can carry out their agenda without scrutiny, and this leads to the most chilling frontier of their power, the rise of the political AI, the ultimate tool of governance and control. We are already being conditioned to accept it. We trust algorithms to choose our music, to recommend our purchases, to navigate our cars. The next step is to trust them to govern us. The narrative is already being written. Humans are flawed, emotional, corruptible. An AI, guided by pure data and logic, could make better, fairer decisions. It could manage the economy, allocate resources, and even dispense justice without bias. This is the promise that will be sold to a public weary of political corruption and incompetence. But the reality of such a system would be a tyranny beyond anything humanity has ever conceived. Imagine a government that doesn't just react to dissent, but predicts it. An AI that monitors your online activity, your purchases, your social connections, your very tone of voice on a phone call, and assigns you a dissent probability score. If your score crosses a certain threshold, you might find your bank account frozen, your travel restricted, or your access to the internet throttled. You won't be arrested by stormtroopers in the night. You will simply be inconvenienced, nudged back in line, rendered ineffective. It is a clean, sterile, and utterly inescapable prison, a digital panopticon where the warden is a disembodied code written to serve the interests of the invisible council. This isn't science fiction. The prototypes are being beta tested right now in places like Xinjiang, and the data-gathering infrastructure, thanks to the tech giants of Silicon Valley, is already in place across the entire Western world. Every smart device in your home is a potential sensor for this future regime. This brings us to the endgame, the specter of a third world war that will never be announced. It will not begin with a mushroom cloud over a great city. It will have been fought and won before the majority of the population even realizes it has started. It is a war fought in three primary theaters. The first is economic, where entire nations become vassal states, their sovereignty erased not by conquest, but by insurmountable debt and technological dependence. The second is biological, where gene editing technologies like CRISPR are no longer just for curing disease, but for creating designer plagues that can target specific populations, or for engineering patented crops that are resistant to those plagues, giving the patent holders the ultimate power over life and death, the power to decide who eats and who starves. The third and final theater is cognitive. It is the war for your mind, a war fought with deepfakes that can put words in a politician's mouth, with personalized propaganda delivered directly to your phone, with the slow and steady erosion of critical thinking until the population is no longer capable of distinguishing between reality and the simulation being fed to them. The winner of this war will not be the nation with the most powerful military, but the faction that controls the AI, that writes the algorithms, that owns the data. They will have achieved a level of control that would make the pharaohs and emperors of old blush. It is a quiet, bloodless coup on a planetary scale. We are living through it right now. The rising political polarization, the inexplicable anger that seems to simmer just beneath the surface of society, the feeling that you are shouting into a void while unseen forces pull the strings of power. These are not just feelings. They are the symptoms of the war. The mainstream media, with its carefully curated narratives and its manufactured outrage, is a puppet theater designed to keep you looking at the stage, while the real action is happening in the rafters, in the server rooms, and in the encrypted chat logs of the Invisible Council. They rely on our disbelief, on our tendency to dismiss such grand, coordinated plans as the stuff of fantasy. They have weaponized our own skepticism against us, but the evidence is there for those who dare to look. It's in the declassified intelligence reports that hint at technologies far beyond what is publicly known. It's in the bizarrely synchronized messaging that appears across dozens of competing news outlets. It's in the way that tech billionaires speak of shaping the future and disrupting society with a messianic fervor that betrays an ambition far greater than simply selling a new gadget. They are not building a better world. They are building a more controllable one. What we once considered conspiracy theory may just be the truth revealed too late.